I was in the operating room when my father's heart surgeon looked at his chart, then looked at me, and his expression went cold. He leaned in close and whispered, "After this surgery, you need to check your mother's bank statements. Every single one. Don't tell her I said anything." Before we dive into what happened next, let me know in the comments which city or province you're watching from here in Canada. Your stories and support mean everything to this channel. My name is Marcus Chen, and 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was. I'm a software architect in Vancouver, 34 years old, with what I believed was a stable, predictable life. My father, Robert Chen, had just turned 62 when he was T-boned by a delivery truck running a red light on Granville Street. The impact crushed the driver's side door, and he'd been rushed to Vancouver General Hospital with severe internal injuries. My mother, Patricia, had been hysterical at the hospital. I'd never seen her like that. We'd always been a calm, measured family. Dad was a retired civil engineer. Mom had worked as a legal secretary for 30 years before retiring. They'd been married for 35 years. They had their routines, their Sunday dim sum in Richmond, their book club, their quiet life in Kitsilano. But in that surgical waiting room, Mom was falling apart in a way that seemed almost theatrical. She kept saying she needed air, needed to make calls, needed to check on the house. She disappeared for 20, 30 minutes at a time. When I asked who she was calling, she snapped at me in a way she never had before. Then Dr. James Kowalski came out of surgery after 4 hours. The operation had been successful. Dad was stable, but Dr. Kowalski's face was troubled. He'd been Dad's cardiologist for 6 years. They played golf together. He knew our family. He pulled me aside, away from my mother, and that's when he said it. "Marcus, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to trust me. Check your mother's financial records. Check her phone records. Check everything. There's something wrong here, and I can't tell you more than that because of patient confidentiality. But you need to look into this immediately." I was confused, rattled. "What do you mean? What did you find?" He shook his head. "I can't say more. Just trust me. Your father's going to recover, but there are things you need to know. Things that came up during the pre-surgical blood work and medical history review. Check everything." Tonight, I felt my stomach drop. What could blood work possibly reveal that would require me to investigate my own mother? Mom wanted to stay at the hospital overnight. She insisted. She practically begged to be allowed to sleep in Dad's room. The nurses eventually agreed to bring in a cot. I told her I'd go home, get some rest, bring fresh clothes in the morning. She seemed relieved when I left, which struck me as odd. I drove back to my condo in Yaletown, but I couldn't sleep. Dr. Kowalski's warning kept replaying in my mind. I trusted him completely. He'd never been dramatic, never been the type to cause alarm without reason. If he was telling me to investigate my own mother, there had to be a legitimate reason. I started with what I had access to. My parents had made me the secondary contact on some of their accounts years ago, back when Dad had a minor health scare and they wanted to ensure someone could access things if needed. I'd never actually used that access. It felt like a violation of privacy. But tonight, I logged in. The joint checking account looked normal. Mortgage payments, utility bills, grocery purchases. Nothing unusual. But then I noticed something. Regular transfers every month to an account I didn't recognize. $2,000, like clockwork, on the 15th of every month, going back years. I dug deeper. The receiving account was at a different bank entirely, one my parents had never mentioned using. I couldn't access the details without more information, but the pattern was clear and consistent. $24,000 a year being moved somewhere. Then I checked credit card statements. Mom's card had charges I didn't recognize. Regular payments to something called Westside Property Management. I Googled it. It was a company that managed rental condos and apartments in Vancouver. Why would my mother be paying a property management company? I called my younger sister, Jennifer, in Toronto. She's a financial analyst, sharp as they come. I explained what I'd found, what Dr. Kowalski had said. "Mark, you need to get more information before you accuse Mom of anything," she said. "But yeah, that's weird. Property management fees when they own their house outright, monthly transfers to an unknown account. You need to talk to Dad when he wakes up." But I couldn't wait. Something was gnawing at me. Dr. Kowalski had said the blood work revealed something. What could blood work possibly show? I stayed up all night researching, and then it hit me. Blood type, medical history, genetic markers. I pulled up my own medical records from my family doctor. My blood type was B positive. I'd known that since I was a teenager when I donated blood during a school drive. I started searching through old documents, trying to find Dad's blood type. I found it on an old insurance form from when he'd had his appendix removed 15 years ago. Type O negative, universal donor. My hands started shaking as I Googled genetics, blood type inheritance. I already knew the answer, but I needed to see it in black and white. 2 parents with O blood type can only have children with O blood type. A parent with O blood type and a parent with B blood type can have children with either O or B blood types. But here's the thing. Mom's blood type was listed on the same insurance documents. Type O positive. 2 O-type parents cannot produce a B-type child. It's genetically impossible. I sat there in my living room as the sun came up over the North Shore Mountains, and I felt my entire identity dissolving. I called Dr. Kowalski's emergency line. He answered immediately. Marcus, my blood type is B positive, Dad's is O negative, Mom's is O positive. There was a long silence. I saw that in the surgical prep. I saw your blood type in your father's emergency contact medical information. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I thought you should know before decisions were made about your father's care, about inheritance, about everything. But I couldn't tell you directly because of confidentiality laws. Does Dad know? I don't know. But you need to find out. And Marcus, be very careful how you handle this. Your mother's behavior at the hospital, her desperation to stay close to your father, the financial irregularities you're going to find. It all suggests she's been hiding something significant for a very long time. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I drove to my parents' house in Kitsilano. I still had my key. I went inside and I searched. In my mother's home office, in a locked filing cabinet that I jimmied open with a screwdriver, I found a folder labeled Personal, Private. Inside were bank statements for that account I'd seen transfers going to. It was in Mom's name only. The balance was over $300,000. But that wasn't the worst part. There were also statements from Westside Property Management. They were managing a 2-bedroom condo in Yaletown. The tenant's name was Michael Brennan. The lease had been in place for 33 years. 33 years. I was 34. There were photos in the folder. Old photos. From the 1980s. My mother, younger, smiling, with a man I didn't recognize. A man who had my eyes, my nose, my jawline. There were letters. Love letters. From Michael to Patricia, talking about their future, about the child they were going to have, about how he couldn't leave his wife, but he'd always take care of them. I felt like I was going to throw up. My phone rang. It was the hospital. Dad was awake and asking for me. I drove back to VGH in a daze. When I walked into Dad's room, Mom was there, hovering, anxious. Dad looked weak but alert. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there I'd never seen before. Knowledge. Pain. He knew. Patricia, can you give us a few minutes? Dad's voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. Mom looked between us, panicked. Robert, you just had surgery. You need rest. I need to talk to my son. Alone. Please. She left, reluctantly, and I pulled a chair close to his bed. You know, don't you? He said quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I've known since you were 3 years old, he said. I needed a blood transfusion after a construction accident. They typed my blood, and then I remembered your pediatrician mentioning your blood type at your last checkup. I did the math. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you leave? His eyes filled with tears. Because you were my son. You are my son. Biology doesn't change that. I raised you, Marcus. I taught you to ride a bike, helped you with your calculus homework, walked you through your first heartbreak. I chose to be your father every single day. I was crying now, too. But Mom, she lied to you for over 30 years. She did. And we had many, many difficult conversations about it. I gave her an ultimatum. She had to end the affair, completely, or I'd leave and take you with me. She chose to end it. Or at least, I thought she had. Dad, there's a condo in Yaletown. She's been paying for it for 33 years. The tenant is named Michael Brennan. The color drained from his face. What? I showed him the documents on my phone, the photos I'd taken of the bank statements, the property management records, everything. He closed his eyes. So she's been supporting him all these years. With our money. With my money. Dad, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. He was quiet for a moment, then his expression hardened in a way I'd never seen. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. I need you to call my lawyer, Thomas Kirkland. His number's in my phone. Tell him everything. Tell him I want to see him tomorrow. I'm going to make sure your mother doesn't get away with this. I called the lawyer that afternoon. Thomas Kirkland was a family law specialist, someone Dad had worked with on various contracts over the years. When I explained the situation, he was immediately on board. Marcus, your father has grounds for divorce based on adultery and financial infidelity. But more importantly, we need to secure his assets immediately. If your mother suspects he knows about the ongoing support of her affair partner, she might try to move money, hide assets, create problems. We need to act fast. Over the next 3 days, while Dad recovered in the hospital, we put together a case. Thomas hired a private investigator who confirmed everything. Michael Brennan, age 65, lived in a luxury condo in Yaletown that my mother had been paying for since 1992. He was a former colleague of hers from the law firm where she'd worked as a secretary. He'd been married when the affair started, had gotten divorced in 1995, and had been living off my mother's financial support ever since. The PI also discovered that Mom had been visiting the condo regularly, multiple times a week. The affair had never ended. She'd been lying to Dad for 34 years. When Dad was discharged from the hospital a week after the surgery, he went to stay with my sister Jennifer, who'd flown in from Toronto. We'd arranged everything without Mom knowing. The lawyer had drawn up divorce papers. We'd frozen the joint accounts. We'd documented everything. Mom came home from the hospital to find Dad gone, and a process server waiting for her with divorce papers and a restraining order preventing her from accessing their joint accounts or selling any jointly owned property. She called me, hysterical. Marcus, what is happening? Where's your father? What have you done? What have I done? Mom, I found out the truth. I know about Michael. I know I'm not Dad's biological son. I know you've been lying for 34 years and stealing from Dad to support your affair partner. The line went silent. Then, quietly, how did you find out? Does it matter? You've been living a lie my entire life. You let Dad raise another man's child while you continued an affair behind his back and funneled money to your lover. Marcus, you don't understand. I love your father. I do. But Michael and I, we have history. We have a connection. I couldn't give that up. So you chose to have both. At Dad's expense. At my expense because I grew up not knowing the truth about who I really am. Robert is your father in every way that matters, she said. And I almost laughed at the irony of her saying the same thing Dad had said. That's not your call to make, Mom. You took that choice away from both of us. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Dad's lawyer was merciless. We had documentation of every transfer, every payment, every lie. Mom tried to argue that the money was hers to do with as she pleased, that she'd worked and contributed to the household income. But Thomas Kirkland dismantled that argument. He showed that the majority of the household wealth came from Dad's engineering career and investments. He showed that Mom had been systematically diverting funds that should have gone to household expenses, to retirement savings, to family vacations, to her affair partner instead. He also brought up the fraud aspect. Mom had been filing joint tax returns with Dad for 34 years, claiming deductions and credits based on their combined household status, while simultaneously maintaining a separate household with another man and not declaring that expense. The judge was not sympathetic. In the settlement, Dad was awarded the house, 70% of the liquid assets, his full pension, and the right to reclaim the money that had been transferred to Mom's private account, over $300,000, as it was proven to be marital funds improperly diverted. Mom was left with 30% of the remaining assets and no claim to Dad's pension or the house. The judge also ordered her to pay Dad's legal fees, which were substantial. But the financial aspect wasn't the hardest part for me. The hardest part was deciding whether to contact my biological father. Jennifer thought I should. You deserve to know where you come from, Mark. You deserve medical history, genetic information, all of it. But I wasn't sure. This man, Michael Brennan, had known about me for 34 years and had never once tried to be part of my life. He'd been content to let Dad do all the work of raising me while he lived off my mother's money in a luxury condo. I decided to meet him, just once, to see what kind of man he was. I arranged to be at the Yaletown condo when Mom wasn't there. The PI had given me Michael's schedule. I knocked on the door, and he answered. He knew who I was immediately. I have his face, after all. "Marcus," he said, and there was something sad in his eyes. I wondered if this day would ever come. "Can we talk?" He let me in. The condo was nice, modern, expensive, all paid for by my mother, by my family's money. "I know why you're here," he said. "You want to know why I never reached out, why I let Robert raise you. That's part of it." He sighed. "I was a coward. I was married when Patricia and I started our affair. I had 2 kids of my own, a mortgage, a life. When she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I told her I couldn't leave my wife, couldn't give up my life. She said she'd handle it, that she'd stay with Robert and raise you as his." "And you were fine with that?" "I was relieved," he admitted. "I'm not proud of it. I was a selfish, weak man. I still am. Patricia offered to let me be part of your life, but I said no. I thought it would be too complicated, too painful, so I took the easy way out. I let her support me financially, and I stayed away from you. Do you have any regrets?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Every single day. When Patricia would tell me about you, about your accomplishments, your graduation from UBC, your career in tech, I felt proud. But I had no right to feel proud. I didn't do anything to earn that. Robert did. He was your real father, Marcus. I was just the biology." I stood up. "You're right. He was my real father. He is my real father, and you were just a mistake. A footnote. I came here to see if there was anything worth knowing about you. Any reason to have a relationship. There isn't." I walked out, and I never looked back. The aftermath was complicated. Mom tried to reconcile with Dad multiple times. She sent letters, emails, showed up at Jennifer's place where he was staying. She claimed she'd end things with Michael, that she'd do anything to fix the marriage. Dad refused. "I gave her that chance 34 years ago, Patricia. She made her choice then, and she made it again every day since. I'm done. As for me, I had to rebuild my sense of identity. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma and identity issues. She helped me understand that discovering your biological origins doesn't erase who you are or the relationships you've built. Dad and I became closer than ever. He made it clear, over and over, that I was his son, that nothing would change that. We started having weekly dinners, something we'd never done before. We talked about everything we'd never talked about, the hard conversations we'd avoided. He also did something that meant the world to me. He updated his will to explicitly state that I was his heir, his son, regardless of biology, and that his entire estate would pass to me and Jennifer equally. He wanted there to be no question, no legal challenge, no doubt. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Dad started dating again. He met a woman named Susan at his book club, a widow who'd lost her husband to cancer 3 years earlier. They took things slow, but I could see he was happy in a way he hadn't been in years, maybe ever. As for Mom, she moved into Michael's condo in Yaletown. The affair that had been hidden for 34 years was now out in the open. Some of her friends stood by her. Most didn't. She lost her book club, her social circle, her reputation. She tried to reach out to me several times. I didn't respond. Jennifer maintained minimal contact, mostly out of obligation, but the relationship was irreparably damaged. I've thought a lot about what I learned from this whole nightmare. Here's what I want you to take away from my story. First, lies compound over time. What might have started as a difficult situation, my mother's affair and my conception, became an insurmountable betrayal because of decades of continued deception. If she'd been honest with Dad early on, if they'd dealt with it together, maybe things could have been different. But 34 years of lies destroyed any chance of redemption. Second, biology doesn't define family. The man who raised me, who taught me everything I know about integrity and hard work, who chose to be my father every single day despite knowing the truth, he's my real dad. DNA is just science. Love and commitment, that's what makes a family. Third, financial infidelity is real and devastating. My mother didn't just betray Dad emotionally. She stole from him, from our family, for over 3 decades. She diverted money that could have given us better vacations, funded my education without loans, provided a more secure retirement. She stole our future to fund her double life. Fourth, the truth always comes out. Always. My mother thought she could maintain her lie forever. But a car accident, a routine blood test during surgery, and the whole house of cards collapsed. If you're living a lie, it will catch up with you. And finally, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Dad could have become bitter, angry, could have taken out his hurt on me. Instead, he chose love. He chose to be the bigger person. He chose to make sure I knew I was valued and wanted, regardless of the circumstances of my conception. I'm not going to lie and say everything is perfect now. I still have moments where I look in the mirror and see Michael Brennan's face staring back at me, and I hate it. I still have times where I wonder who I would have been if I'd grown up knowing the truth. But I also know who I am now. I'm Marcus Chen, son of Robert Chen, brother of Jennifer Chen. I'm a software architect who learned the value of honesty from a father who exemplified integrity every day of his life. I'm someone who believes that family is built through choice and commitment, not just blood. And I'm someone who will never, ever take the easy way out when it comes to the important things in life. I learned that from Dad. The real one. If you're dealing with family secrets, with betrayal, with the discovery that your life isn't what you thought it was, I want you to know it gets better. It takes time, it takes therapy, it takes support from the people who truly love you. But you can rebuild. You can find your footing again. And if you're the one keeping secrets, if you're living a double life, if you're betraying someone who trusts you, I'm here to tell you that it's not worth it. The temporary comfort of avoiding difficult conversations will never be worth the catastrophic damage when the truth inevitably comes out. Do the hard thing now. Have the difficult conversation. Face the consequences of your choices. Because the alternative is losing everything and everyone who matters and destroying innocent people in the process. That's all I have for you today. If this story resonated with you, or if you've experienced something similar, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories help others feel less alone. And as always, thank you for being part of the Deception Tales Lab community. I'll see you in the next one.